My name is Mark Hanson. My wife, Kate, and myself moved into this house about 8 months ago. We have the geothermal with 14 100-foot deep wells out in our backyard.
We have a GCT024, which is a combo unit. It does radiant in-floor hot water heating along with forced air heating and air conditioning. We're doing 100% of the domestic hot water with a high temperature unit.
That was an early decision in the design phase because in addition to the capability of powering it with electricity, we power it at an incredibly high efficiency level. You can't match the efficiency of the geothermal heat pump, and it's quiet. You don't hear air piping through vents at 3 in the morning because air isn't piping through vents. It's heated up. The floor just radiates that heat up. It's wonderful.
Brett Little, Executive Director at the GreenHome Institute, coming to you live from Roseville, Minnesota, at the Home Sweet Home Project. And we've got a big part of the project team here with us, so join us, ask some questions, and hope you have a good time. Thank you.
We are Mark and Kate Hanson, and this is our lovely home.
I'm Mark Sloot with Sala Architects. I'm the architect on this project.
I'm Lisa Peck with Lilu Interiors, and this is...
I'm Christina Reimer with Lilu Interiors as well.
I'm Jason with Mossman Geothermal, the mechanical contractor in the project.
I'm Matt Burton with Southfeet Design, the landscape designer on the project.
Jamie Burrell with Innovative Power Systems, IPS Solar. We did the solar project here.
Well, thanks everybody. I just thought I'd start with just a little bit of big picture stuff here, and Mark and Kate are going to introduce what their vision was for the project to begin with.
Thank you. When we came up with the project, we wanted to build a net zero house that produced as much energy as the house used on an annual basis, as well as the amount of energy that the cars used on an annual basis. We drive 2 electric cars, so the solar on the house will produce as much energy as both the house and the cars use over a year.
That's great. So when Mark and Kate came to me at Sala, they obviously were focused on the energy side of it, and we quickly started talking about a holistic approach, and that energy, of course, is extremely important with sustainability, but there are also other factors in indoor environmental quality, material resource efficiency, water conservation, site and community impact. And so with that, they quickly embraced that, and so we decided then to really engage green certification program in the broader sense as a part of the process to help inform decisions and to also validate the decisions that are being made, and to have sort of a measure, if you will, and be able to certify the project at the end. So we started working with GreenStar and LEED for Homes, and use those checklists to really help guide the process. Mark and Kate didn't have a lot to begin with, and so this is a really kind of unique project in that we're starting from scratch. And the first question was, well, what should we look for in a lot? I mean, we're a blank slate. We can start from there. And so we thought, well, the ideal lot would be a south-facing slope, so we could have both a main level and a lower level. We could do the massing the way we wanted and have great solar exposure. And they found one like that. It took a while actually to find a lot, right? And you looked at several.
We also wanted to find a lot closer to where Kate works. We wanted to move closer to the cities because, frankly, we used to live north of the cities about 15 miles from here, and it put a lot of miles on our car so that we could spend additional time in traffic jams. And we figured that didn't help our energy side of things. It also didn't help our quality of life. So
getting closer to work was definitely part of it too.
Right, yeah. So finding a lot closer into the urban environment, I mean, that's obviously more limiting because most of them are taken. And then finding, one with the right attributes that we wanted. So as I recall, we did find one that was south-facing, but actually it was kind of a developer-owned lot, and they didn't really prefer to have a house that was going to be cutting edge with solar panels and things on it. So actually that lot we were not able to get. And even though the position and orientation looked like it might have been good. So you ended up finding this one, I don't know, a few weeks after that. We engaged a realtor that was also really embraced sustainability, and so that was helpful in the whole process. And so this one was a flat lot, and we said, okay, well, still great solar access, and so
wonderful south facing the road right on the south side, so we didn't have any trees too close.
Right.
It was wonderful.
Yeah. Not a lot of traffic here because this is a sort of a dead-end neighborhood, if you will. It's just a single road in and out, so that was great. And we decided, well, we'll work with the flat lot aspect of it because so many other attributes were so great. And with that, then we really started doing some scheming on the house itself. You wanted a smaller footprint, I think you mentioned earlier.
Definitely.
Less square footage, and so that really, of course, is a great sustainability approach to begin with. Build less. And you can see with the house here, one of the things that we did is embrace the notion of a more compact form. There's a ratio of the exterior skin relative to the usable floor area, and if you do the massing where you're really kind of stacking spaces, you can reduce that ratio. And so if you think about it from a cost standpoint, also the expensive part of construction is the exterior walls. I mean, that's where all the insulation is. That's where you got to be really taking care to do the durability and the water management, right? So there's a lot of things that go involved into that, so there's a lot more cost there. So obviously if you can reduce the amount of that actual construction, that's really helpful as well. This house, the main living part of the house is forward part, and then those three windows you see next, that's a link, and then to the garage. So the link isn't unheated, it's just the main part of the house is the conditioned space. It's a great time right now with the sun to see how the passive solar is working. I mean, the house is, we'd say really it's that passive solar tempering. I mean, the house isn't fully passive solar, but this house has a lot of really great passive solar tempering, and passive solar strategies are basic that you're really responding to the sun. We're oriented to the south, there's an obvious one, but things built into and designed into the house itself to get that right involve shading in the summer. So you can see how the windows are shaded right now. We've got high summer sun. We want to keep that summer sun out of the house because we don't want to be overheating and then having to air condition. So you can see that working right now. And you can see the shadows for the windows on the lower level. So we tucked the lower level, we actually tucked it back so that the main level actually serves as shading for that lower level as well. In the wintertime, we could be back here and you would see that the sun is low in the sky, and then we would be getting light streaming through those windows and taking advantage of that passive solar. So really kind of basic concept, but it's not something that you can sprinkle on at the end, right? Sometimes people are like, okay, well, we'll get some of that green stuff on the end. Well, these are things that have to go into the design right from the beginning, and you can't just add on to the end. And as an architect, I love, aspects of the design that are both form and function. And so these are a couple of great examples of that. That flat roof coming around, serving as our shading, like I said, coming around. It will also, you'll eventually see that's a flat roof on the screen porch back there. So it's all integrated. Nice lines, the flat roof on the link, so you really can carry through some of these lines. So from an overall beauty and composition, those are all playing into that. Another aspect that's playing into it are the roof forms. So if you can notice that the south roof is a different pitch than the north roof. And the south roof is a 12-12 pitch, which in our latitude is an ideal slope for fixed solar panels. And by doing this asymmetrical pitch, we're able to really have the structure itself be expressive of that, but we're also able to then lower the ridge. If we would have had a 12-12 pitch on both sides, the ridge would have been taller, and the house roof would have cast more shadow onto the garage roof. So with this, then we're able to get better exposure, better protection, and again, have that form also be a very functional part of the design. With our lot, we only have a certain amount of length, of course, to stay inside of the zoning setbacks. So that also allows us to pull the garage as tight as we could to the house to make sure that we had enough room to get the driveway and access into the garage on the north side. We'll get into the landscaping more towards the end, but you can see that we're tucked in here really nice to the landscaping. Just a really, really beautiful overall contribution to the neighborhood.
Let's go on in.
Great, come on. With this neighborhood here, this is actually technically the front of the house, even though by the city, because this is where the address is, and so this has to be the front of the house. So we really have two fronts in a way, because we want, you know, south is where we're really oriented for the sun, but this is the true address and front of the house. Oh, we got the little butterfly garden working out there. Nice. Just as you come up, we can see there's the exterior materials here are fiber cement siding, very durable. There's a vent space behind it, so a rain screen kind of approach. Other trim is also fiber cement, so extremely, extremely durable. The windows you're looking at right there are Anderson A-series windows, triple pane. Anderson worked great with us to get the right glazing package, that you know, the right coatings on the glazing that would really contribute to the best performance overall. So we ended up with a higher solar heat gain coefficient on the windows on the south and the east and the west. And you know, again, that's a passive solar kind of strategy. It actually, if you look at the energy modeling, contributes to a little bit more cooling necessary in the summer, but it's more than offset in our climate by the amount of benefit you get in the wintertime. Mm-hmm. Generous entryway here. One of the things you'll notice right away is that very little lights turned on in here. The daylighting is really terrific in this house. So that, of course, contributes to the overall ambiance in the house, but also, you know, there's real energy, aspects of that as well, that you don't have to run the lights. So once again, it's that much more energy efficient. We have the house laid out in such a way that, in generous welcoming entry, but you quickly get a glimpse with long views into the rest of the house. And so it really sort of encourages you to come in, but at the same time has a sense of definition to the rooms. So the entry coming in through the kitchen here into the dining, living room area. So by having the space laid out this way, we're really sharing a lot of space. So that allows the house to have that smaller footprint as well, so less square footage. When you're at the dining table, you're kind of half sharing a little bit in the living room. This open floor plan just works really great for a house like this. And it's just, yeah. Now that we're in here, you can just notice a couple of things. We've got detail with we've done a lot with the woodwork, and just in terms of laying out the space and defining the areas and augmenting the flow. So we've got the swooping curve here, and one of the things you'll notice is the lights are in that, so we don't have penetrations in the actual ceiling. So that's another strategy that is really important to improve on air tightness and energy efficiency. So any lights that are up in that ceiling area are in the soffit and not penetrating our thermal envelope and our air barrier. Onto the interior materials here. Lilo really worked with us and did tremendous job on all the interior finishes and selections, and let them explain all that.
So one of the things that we were very excited about is that we were able to find materials that were made out of recycled materials, really didn't cost any more than standard materials, and improve not only the green aspects of the home, but also the indoor air quality and things that affect the occupants of the home. We were able to do that with furnishings as well. So many of the furnishings, all of the furnishings you see, were made by manufacturers that have a low carbon footprint in their manufacturing process and use many recycled products as well. Some strategies we used were, we had local tile made for the kitchen backsplash by North Prairie Tile, and because it's so local, it's maybe traveled 10 miles to get here.
That's awesome.
Also, the durability alone helps with the sustainability of the house. So these things are like very well made, high quality, and so they're gonna stay in your house. They're not gonna end up in a landfill because they need to be replaced in 20, 30 years. That these materials are gonna stay here and be a part of this home. And so we also, with that interior design portion, thought about how you live with these materials and things that Kate and Mark would want to live with. So their home is not only beautiful, or the home is beautiful, and also is, you know, sustainable and net zero and provides all of that. So that was a big part of our job.
An example of that is in the kitchen, we used linoleum, which is a product that your grandparents would have used. But it's made out of sawdust and linseed oil and all these products that have no impact on the indoor air quality. And not only that, it has some resilience. So one of the aspects of the project being green is also that they're going to age in place, right? So they build the house once, they don't have to remodel, they don't have to move again. And the resilience of the flooring is helpful when you age. Your joints might ache if you're standing for a long time in the kitchen, and this helps with that.
The low VOCs, volatile organic compounds, also helped a lot. When we had people working in here, and when we first moved in, there was no new home smell. You didn't smell the compounds, you know, coming out of the paint or anything else. We've been healthier here. Our allergies have bothered us less, and that's saying something because we both have quite a few of them. It's been comfortable, healthy, and energy efficient. I can't say enough about those. There's no price on those.
And I think the healthy side is what surprised us with how quickly we noticed that. Within 2 weeks of living in the house, we looked at each other one day and said, I feel better. And it's not just the state of mind of finally being in your dream house. We really were feeling much healthier very quickly. And that's something that I keep coming back to, is that health factor. It's important to me.
You made an observation about time spent here and travel and things like that.
Yeah, I used to drive 18,000 miles a year in my vehicle when I lived just 15 miles north of here. So far, since October 1st, so about 10 months in, I've driven about 5,400 miles. I drive a lot less because we live closer to basically everything. But I also drive less because I find I enjoy my time in the house more than I used to. So I don't drive out to the mall because I'm bored and want to do something else. It's just wonderful, and that completely surprised me. I did not expect that at all.
Yeah, because you had originally even estimated, okay, well, moving closer to the city, we're going to drive less, and so we factored that into calculations as we were working on the the energy calculations and things. And then the observation that we're even less than what you had anticipated.
A lot less than what we anticipated.
I think that's particularly interesting because I think a lot of people assume if it's a smaller home, it won't live as well. You'll feel like you need to get out more to restaurants and that kind of thing, and you're actually finding the opposite.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
I was going to just ask you guys to maybe talk a little bit about the color. I mean, so we said, okay, we want dark colors for the passive solar aspect. I mean, another aspect of the passive solar that you want to get right is that you want enough thermal mass inside, so that when you do have the sun coming in, you can absorb that and not overheat quickly. So you absorb that heat energy into the massive materials during the day, and then you release that heat as you get off into the evening, so it kind of broadens your benefit during the day. So that was sort of the marching order, so to speak. But you guys really embraced that.
We did, and that led us to this warm charcoal gray as kind of a base color for the countertop, which is again made in North America, and the main porcelain tile, which is from Tennessee.
Yep, Crossville, Tennessee.
Crossville. And these are materials that people would typically use and maybe not appreciate that they are green and that they have recycled content, but they provide the thermal mass we needed. However, Kate and Mark also were willing to embrace color. So we came up with this idea of using Kate's favorite color, right? Purple, she's in a purple shirt today, as a counterpoint to all the charcoal gray. It still is a dark color, but it adds personality to the space. And then we also used green.
Nice
You'll see more
compliment.
Just because, it's a nice complement to the purple. And we were able to get a beautiful glaze from the heavy tile again, and that's kind of where those colors started, and then they made their way through the house.
Yep.
And speaking of making their way in, the materials on those cabinet doors have some special attributes, correct?
Yeah, the materials on the cabinet doors are very interesting. They're made by a company called Weitzner Limited, and it is made out of essentially a tree bark. So really it's a byproduct of forestry. They take it and they put it on screen and allow it to dry. It's an age-old kind of rice paper type of craft, but it's being used as wall covering, or in this case cabinet faces, and we painted the purple underneath that to give texture and interest and focal point to that wall.
Of course, the cool colors can, if not used right, can kind of overwhelm a space and give it too much of a cool feel. But really warmed it up a lot with the woods here, and there's I guess some special attributes to the wood is right as well, correct? The veneer.
So the veneer is made out of again byproduct from making other wood products, and it is taken and reconstituted into something that looks like quarter cherry, but it is essentially using waste product and making it into a veneer that is really beautiful, consistent, and it maintains its consistent color throughout the lifetime of your home. So it doesn't kind of amber or change color the way a typical cherry would, and it will always add the same level of warmth to the house.
It's called an eco veneer, is that?
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Ecowood.
Ecowood veneer. Yeah, and it has a horizontal line that again plays with the soffit, and this horizontal line as you walk in, so your eye really moves through the home and out that south view.
Right.
It expands the space in a
Yep.
way that you wouldn't quite imagine until you experience it.
Yeah, that was great. I mean, it's really nice that, how you guys picked up on that in the whole process, right? That we talk about the overall kind of layout and flow and some of the massing things, and then to work collaboratively to, have those finishes, pick that up in a subtle way and reinforce that. I mean, that speaks to the benefit of the team, which is greater than the sum of its parts.
Yes, it is, always. Always. The other thing I wanted to mention in here is, while daylighting is a big part of this project, at night you do need lights, and all of the light fixtures that we have selected are LED, and they do a great job of lighting the space, and they actually are interesting with the scale of the house because they're LED sources. They could often be much smaller light fixtures, and so there's design possibilities there that we didn't have before LED was being used in residential lighting.
And as far as energy and health, tell us a little bit about what we're going on in the kitchen here. as far as cooking and how that might be different than a conventional home.
Sure.
Somebody.
Anybody want to talk about
Well, let's
that?
talk about that.
We've got an induction stovetop, so it's electric, but it uses very little. It's not like heating up the burners and such. It's magnetic actually. It works really well, really fast, and it's even more responsive than natural gas. It's amazing.
Which I appreciate quite a bit. I've always cooked with electric and always had friends not like that. They want the responsiveness of gas, and this hits both points for us. We can have that responsiveness, but the efficiency is amazing. It's been working great.
Energy efficient appliances. We went for Energy Star appliances wherever possible. And just, it's been a wonderful kitchen.
Dishwasher drawer speaks to that. I mean, energy efficient, yes, but also just the fact that it's a 2-drawer works well for people that don't have as many dishes, right? So with, again, you only have to run 1 drawer if you only fill up 1 drawer, as opposed to running the whole, full load. Another strategy. The range hood there, of course, from a air quality standpoint, very important to have that it does exhaust to the exterior. You don't see it, but tucked up above you is an air exchange duct also that it cycles through the air exchanger. So keeping just kind of source point from the kitchen area, not from the cooking itself. You don't want to be pulling that through the air exchanger, but just in general, pulling fresh air from the kitchen. Another aspect is the composting. Do you guys want to talk about that just a little bit? And you've got some plans for that. And
yeah, we started composting both yard waste and food scraps. We have a compost bin out back, which we'll see when we go outside. But basically, just one of those that it's got 2 sections in it. You rotate it in order, a few times a week, once a day, however much you want to stay on top of it. The more you rotate it, the faster it finishes. Sometimes I forget, but
Well, and we have plans for an in-house composter that we're waiting to actually come to fruition. It's a newer product that's coming out, and so it was a fundraiser Kickstarter style campaign that we were really interested in, and so we're waiting to see the results of that so that we can have even faster composting right within the house before it even makes it to the next stage. So that's in the works.
The other thing I think I'd like to mention is refrigeration. Often people don't think about if you have a very efficient refrigerator, you have less food waste because it keeps your food fresher longer, and that is an important aspect of when you select your appliances, to try to make sure that is an aspect of the refrigerator that you choose.
Yeah, and I know up-downs are typically more efficient than side-by-side, so I don't know if that factored in or just that was the look, but
part of it, but it was also just the form factor. We like the up-down. It was more convenient for us to use. The fridge actually may look a decent size. It's a counter depth fridge though. So instead of having all this room in the back to put things that you'll find in a year or 2.
just mold.
Yeah. We
Again,
have,
food waste,
we
yes.
have a less deep fridge, so it's smaller, more efficient, and we end up with less food waste again.
another thing about that extra space in the back, though, is we do also have air duct back there. So once again, in a subtle way, we're helping the whole thing be even more efficient than it would normally be by circulating air over those cooling coils of the refrigerator, and having that space back there allows the room for all that to take place. As we kind of move this way, you'll be able to see some of the detailing. Maybe it's just seen it already just as a glimpse as you've been panning around as far as like the trim. So doors and windows, we don't have any interior casing. We've just got the jamb itself, and then there's just a recess and a shadow line. So really embracing the overall aesthetic. And there are also the most green material is the one that never got used. So if you don't have that trim, it's that helps out as well. There's also in a tight footprint like this, did allow us to keep some tighter tolerances. There's certain areas you definitely see when we go around the corner into the other room where doors are tied up close to other walls where we wouldn't been as easy to get a piece of trim on there. So it's just another subtle way where this is kind of embracing that whole overall aesthetic. You can walk through the
in the living room, I also wanted to mention, although there are no carpets in the house, there are rugs for added warmth, but they are handmade out of wool. They're also very low impact on the environment to make rugs this way.
And sound is an aspect of that as well. If you have so many hard surfaces, it can be just a little too echoey. And so you guys thought about that, I know, as you were making selections.
We did. More of that downstairs. Selections to help with sound.
Yeah. So we walk through over here into the master bathroom area. As you come straight in here, you'll see that window is an operable window. You can see the crank handle on it. And then to the left, the windows above the bed, and to the across the bed there, those are fixed windows. And the strategy in this house on the windows is to have operable windows where they make sense. So we've got strategically placed operable windows to allow for cross ventilation. So this one could be open, we could ventilate all the way across the house through the kitchen. And where we don't need operable windows, then we have fixed windows. Those are less costly, so win there. They're also more energy efficient because they just can't possibly leak because they're all sealed up.
And we do use that cross ventilation quite often. Most summer day until it hits 90. It has been a blessing to have that, and you can really feel it flow right through the house. It's been great.
Yeah. In fact, I recall as we came here today, you had some windows open, and it was really nice ventilation. So
it's been great.
Tighter tolerances, pocket doors. Again, use quite a few pocket doors in the house here to really allow for the flow, and swing doors take up more space and get in the way. Did you guys have something over there, Lisa? Okay.
No.
Come into the bathroom area here. Lisa and Christina, do you want to talk about some of the features in here?
Yeah. So one of the things that we did in here was we selected these faucets that go on and off with touch. They're very water efficient. You can use the control, but you can run them just for a very short amount of time, and they indicate whether they're hot and cold. Another thing in terms of aging in place that we took into consideration when we were selecting flooring was slip resistance. That was very important. And so the steps up to the tub are scored so that they will be safe to use as people age in place. Again, we used crossfill ceramics tile in here, but in this small space we also used a graphic application of the tile to create interest and to also kind of visually push out the walls.
Yeah, so it's essentially all tile from the same collection, and we just use different colors and different sizes and shapes from it to get this interesting pattern. So together we collaborate on that with the tiler installer as well. Again, to show you that with sustainability and green products, you can still do something that's super interesting in your home, and it can still be beautiful and fun, and add a little jazz to a place that you actually spend a lot of time in. So that was behind that. There's also no threshold to allow for wheelchair access or just getting in as you age in place. If that were to ever happen, you can just move right into that. So you don't have to remodel your home if something were to happen.
Fresh air quality in here, just integrated right into the woodwork here. You can see that little grill up there. That's the exhaust air. So again, that is a source point that's tied into the energy recovery ventilator. And right behind me here is the crank timer. So if you want to speed up the airflow in this bathroom like you would normally have for a bath fan, you would just turn the crank timer, and that will kick the ERV into high speed and concentrate the airflow from this room. So it really functions like most people would expect with having a bath fan.
And tell us something, what we can't see behind the shower and tub surround as far as keeping moisture out.
Yeah, so it's, careful detailing to moisture is so important in energy efficient high performing walls, because they don't dry out as fast as walls that are leaky and have a lot of energy pouring through them. So there's a cement board behind there, and then a very robust waterproofing system that's all behind the tile before that tile is put on. Joints have like a fabric and then extra waterproofing trowel on, so it's extremely durable and resilient for any little slight movements that the houses typically have over the years, just from little expansion and contraction, so you won't get leaking through the corners and the cracks.
Space master bath. So
space
what,
planning.
what I like about this bathroom that Mark did, and maybe he can talk to it better, is that I think it delivers a luxury experience in a fairly small footprint. You've got a double vanity that a lot of people find highly desirable, and Japanese soaking tub, so you get a very nice bathing experience, but you don't have to have more square feet to achieve that.
Right, we're able to get a little larger shower that way by compacting and doing the vertical soaking. Toilet is tucked around the corner, of course very functional, but not in your direct line of sight right when you walk in. Low flow fixtures, the toilet of course is a low flow, I think 1.28 gallon per flush. All the fixtures of course are low flow as well for the shower.
Absolutely. Yep.
Circling through here, so right off the bathroom, then your master bathroom, right into their master closet, very convenient with the pocket doors. Again, compact space planning. And then the laundry room, just kind of backing right up, laundry room connected to that. So you think about where you generally have more of your clothes and generate dirty clothes, changing things like that. So the laundry room is adjacent to that. So extremely convenient layout that way. In this room, there's no other features that are fun to point out. Again, another source point. So that's again tied into the air exchange system. So we're drawing our source points from all the rooms in the house where there might be air that you might want to pull out. So laundry room, bathrooms, kitchen. And in this room then, the air supply, we incorporated that into the countertop here. So rather than that being a more common toe kick air supply, the supply in this room comes out here because Mark and Kate said, we actually like to hang our clothes to dry. And so we incorporated a nice hanging bar here, so after the clothes come out of the washer, they tend to hang them a lot. And then when the air system just runs naturally, it's going to blow air past those, and so it helps augment the drying, and it also helps actually if you didn't have that and you had just kind of stagnant air, you're more likely from that moisture to get some mold in the walls and things. So this really keeps that dry, keeps it healthy.
Gap on the back of this as well to allow air to flow up behind as well.
That's great.
It works really well.
Washer dryer, high efficiency washer, dryer. This is a really high efficiency. Has a heat pump technology in it. So again, from the beginning, to be as most energy efficient as possible and to meet their goals, we knew that we needed to employ heat pump technology wherever we could throughout the house. So that is here in the dryer as well. That's a new available technology. So this dryer also has a condensing feature to it. So there's not a air duct that's exhausting air to the exterior. A lot of people don't realize that dryers, aside from using a lot of energy just to dry the clothes, they also really are an energy draw because they're pulling a lot of conditioned air out of the house. And that air you've already paid to condition, either with your heating and cooling, depending on what time of the year you're in. So by having condensing technology where where that moisture is just condensing into a little drain pipe and draining down into the drain. We don't need to suck all that air out of the house, and we can do that without significantly compromising the indoor air quality. So the challenge, of course, with dryers in the past is that if all that moist air you're exhausting into the house, that would just really be a compromise to the interior air quality and moisture, and so this really is new technology that addresses that and is extremely energy efficient then in all different levels. Coming right back through the powder room here, again more pocket doors, so this is just all stacked together tight, but extremely functional and comfortable. Another ERV source point, and in this room, the wallpaper there, that is one that, there they are. Talk about the wallpaper here, Christina.
Yeah, so this is again through the Weitzner Limited. Lori Weitzner is the designer. It's recycled newspaper that gets woven into a wall covering, and we just added, it kind of plays a little bit on being in a bathroom, that newspaper, and then just add some fun. Again, you can have personality within your home as well, and then even a fun little, not all the hardware was chosen. These are recycled glass. Just again, another little touch of a pop of color, a little interest that you can see, especially in your powder room as guests come in and use this space. So yeah, so just again, defining, using a lot of design in a small space. Yep.
That's great. As we come off the floor, we kind of go through the link. I'm just going to point out right over here, Brett, you can see the thick walls and the deep windowsills. So this house has very thick exterior walls, so extremely high insulating value. And so it's actually a double stud wall. So there's two courses of 2x4 studs, and it's about 11¼ inches thick and filled with cellulose. So it's a very high performing wall. We looked at some other systems prior to this one, and by working closely with the general contractor, and they were doing some pricing evaluations, said, this would really be one that would work well from an overall cost standpoint. And as we think about embodied energy, it's great as well, because wood has a low embodied energy. So we've got wood studs, we've got smaller wood studs by having the 2x4s, but then the cellulose insulation, that's just great because that has a very low embodied energy, high recycled content as well. And the windows, by having that deep windowsill, really expands the space. So even though our walls, the floor footprint is to the interior of that, that gives a greater functional space for, it's like there's a shelf at every window, as well as just giving you a sense of space, because your eye can really lead to that outer portion.
Is there any exterior insulation?
No. So this has the double stud, and then we've got the plywood sheathing on the outside of that, and then the airspace behind the siding, that vented rain screen, to really make sure that the wall stays dry and will be very resilient over a long term.
And those studs are effectively staggered, right?
Well, yeah, because the wall is 11¼ inches thick. The studs, they do align, but they are separated by several inches. So there's a complete thermal break. And so we've got the plates thermally broken as well. And at the window jambs, really all there is just a plywood skin that connects the inner and the outer. So it's a very, very, very minimal thermal bridge.
I guess speaking of that, tell us a little bit how tight this home is and how you achieve that without using foam out there, and maybe why did you pick cellulose over foam, especially if foam has a higher R value?
Yeah, good point. Again, more cost effective, and rather than having the thicker or having the more expensive foam in the wall. So it could have been achieved. You could have achieved that same energy performance with a different assembly, but again, with the thinking about embodied energy as well, that played in really well to that. So that was. Those are kind of the big reasons for doing that, and it does have a vapor retarder, a smart vapor retarder on the interior. So we used again a smart one, so it does respond to moisture. So if there was ever any moisture that managed to get in there, That smart vapor retarder changes its vapor permeance in the presence of moisture and allows that moisture to get out better, so that wall can really remain dry better.
Great.
Oh, you asked about the air sealing.
Oh, yes.
Sorry. So this house tested out at, I think it was 301 CFM total at the 50 Pascal. So extremely airtight, and that converts to 0.05 CFM per square foot of shell. So it's extremely airtight shell. So even doing the studs and not the foam on these walls, careful attention to detail, still able to get that. That's not to say there isn't foam in this house in certain places. We got foam in the lower level walls, we got foam in the rim joist, but on these main level walls, it's all that cellulose. And the ceiling, we've just got a thin layer of foam for the air sealing properties of that, and then on top of that is a thick layer of cellulose to get to about an R80. So the walls are roughly R40, ceiling R80.
And the slab is?
Slab has 4 inches underneath it, so it's close to an R20. Again, we use the expanded polystyrene wherever we had rigid insulation, because that has a low global warming potential. So we really wanted to stay away from insulations that have a high global warming potential. So even with the closed cell spray foam that's used here, we use that, there's one that's using the new blowing agent that Lapola has, and so it's has a low global warming potential. So really took a lot of care to specify those, and really had to stay on top of that, because it's not the usual thing that the building suppliers are expecting to supply, and so really had to kind of keep on top of that and make sure that different insulation didn't come out by accident, which sometimes happens, and did happen, and we had to send back. And there is also rock wool on the outside of the foundation. So below grade, that's rock wool is great. Bugs don't like it. Good insulator.
Doesn't rot.
Doesn't rot, right? And it's also protects the waterproofing on the house, and it serves as a drainage medium. So any releases that hydrostatic pressure in this area, because there's, with us being a slab on grade, we actually have a fair amount of clay here that we found that we had to also be sensitive to, and make sure that the detailing wasn't going to result in water problems. So.
Great. Let's head down.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us for this video produced by the GreenHome Institute. Make sure you complete part 2 to check out the rest of the home and to ensure you get the information you need for